we're seeing an extremely high percentage of our people being afflicted with Stockholm Syndrome. So what we're finding is that we have normalized, or we're normalizing, continue to normalize the suffering and the suppression of resistance against our oppressors. Very interesting thing I see happening at the convention center, in the area of the convention center in Montego Bay, where the CARICOM summit is now underway, that there was signage put up across the area talking to the genocide in Palestine, the genocide that Israel is carrying out against the Palestinians. And we see I'm not sure what we say let's take that back. But Jamaican authorities, people in positions of authority, have decided to take down the signs that says, stop the genocide, free Palestine, free Gaza. And this is happening in Bob Marley's country. This is happening in Marcus Mosiah Garvey's country. This is happening in the country of Rastafari, which is the only indigenous form of resistance to come out of the belly of oppression and colonization on this island. This is happening in our space. We're good with that? We okay with that? So we're good with that then. We're good with that. Earlier this year, we witnessed the dismantling of the education system and curriculum in the United States under Project 2025 on the Dark Enlightenment. It's well underway now. Now we're seeing the tools for facilitating the continuation of the control of the black mind and the destruction of the black mind, self-destruction, placed in our own hands through the use of various technologies that we ourselves haven't created. Nothing is wrong with the technology, it is how we use it. But even beyond that, we are not creating the technology. We are consuming the technology. So we have India that's creating the technology. We have China and other Asian countries creating the technology. We have some Europeans and Americans creating the technology. But what about us? We have become, and we remain, consumers of these technologies, which, because we are such avid consumers, we are also open to a whole different form of slavery, a whole different form of enslavement, because we are not creating our own. Because we have been defined by the politicians, the tribal politicians on this island. In recent times, they have defined us as a service industry. And Jamaica being a service industry, the people of Jamaica are the servants to others, to other races and to others. We become the enslaved again, because that is the frame of mind. That's a paradigm in which those who are in charge of all of these systems of education, tourism, agriculture, this is the mindset of those who are in charge. So everything that we know and everything that we've learned, everything that we've carried with us through time and centuries, between time and within spaces, all of that we are throwing out over time, and we are, because we're greedy and we can't live without US aid and European aid and all different kinds of aids, we allow them to come in with their technology, their ways of knowing, their ways of doing things. And so we have thrown out everything that we know. Our culture of farming, agriculture, our understanding or knowing of how to plant and how to reap and what to plant and what not to eat. We have thrown that out, because if they don't come in to teach us how to do that which we have been doing all our lives, then we can't get them aid. And so they put it up in a little package, tie it with a bow, and sell it back to us through their different agencies. And here we are, fully GMO, fully alienated in terms of what we're putting in our system, eating plastics and genetically modified food and poisons poisoning our soils through Roundup and other kinds of poisons that we're using as weed killers and fertilizers. And in the education system, we embrace everything that they're telling us at every single level. And at the level of academia at universities, all these studies, all these research, sponsored and funded by these very same big pharmaceutical companies and multinational corporations and big conglomerates who are not interested, have no interest in us being owners and thinkers, critical thinkers, deep thinkers, but owners of our own destiny and our resources and our land and our seas and our rivers. But for us to remain their slaves. And all of this is being facilitated by those who are now running through election and campaigning and campaigneering and electioneering up and down Jamaica. And we are run back at them chick like we're idiot. Anyway, let me take a break. Special good morning and really a virtual hug to my sister ambassador, the wife of the former ambassador, Richard Bernal. Margaret Bernal was there, and you recall in this space many years ago, we serialized one of her books in this space, and she was there with us, in the background and in the foreground sometimes on the In Search of series. Her husband, her late husband, Ambassador Richard Bernal, was an integral part of our In Search of series, and Professor Vereen Shepherd, I'm sure, can remind us of how integral he was, but he was part of the In Search of series, always there in the background, and did so many interviews with him too. So many of his books we read here on the book club, through the book club, and he was always accessible to come online or in the studio, however it was, and be a part of what we were doing. And Margaret Bernal reminded me of the In Search of series yesterday, and she looked right in my eyes and she said, "That was a brilliant project that you all did." She said, "What are you doing with the archival material?" So many people ask a question about the In Search of series and how that series, we went around the island, 14 parishes. I thought about it this morning and said to myself, I am wondering if we left out a parish. And if we did, we didn't quite get around to a parish, it would have been Hanover, So Hanover, let me know. Did we come to Hanover for the In Search of series? I think not, and I think that's the only parish. So we can have a quick link with you to see what's happening there. If you can get through, I honestly do not understand what's happening, but it's a morning when we seem not to be able to get through. And I'm saying this because we had about 5 people to be online just now, and we weren't able to get through to any of them. I think it's not you, I think it's us, but not us from the perspective that we have to talk to, whether it is flow, whether it is digital, or whether it is cable and wireless. I'm not quite sure what's happening, but we're not getting through to our guests this morning online. We apologize for that. Wondering if this is not deliberate, because how it is that you have some high schools in Jamaica performing at certain levels and others that continuously perform at such low levels. Something not right. The system is purposefully, deliberately set up to be this unequal. Because remember, we are a service industry. And so one of the things that's happening here, they tell us that we're a service industry. So they have to create and make and remake over our young people into servants for the tourism industry to go through the back door. Where are you going to get workers for the tourism industry if everybody there is sixth form and everybody heading to the universities? It's deliberate, and they're running up and down using these very same people, so many of these very same people, who over years and over time you have conditioned into becoming your servants and your slaves to run back at you election time, and then you talk down to them in the Jamaican language because you disdain them anyway, and you yourself do not hold the Jamaican language with any respect or with any regard. We have a situation right here on the island. If we don't fix it, we're going to have a problem. And we've been talking about this for so long. But who's going to bail the cat? And how you change this? How do you begin to change this? I've been to the graduations. I see what's happening around town. I see how when you sit in a traditional high school graduation, the whole thing is done at a whole different... It's classism. It's apartheid-like. But when you go to the non-traditional school, it's a whole other situation. Self in who goes to university, who goes to teachers' college. And there are some of them that you're deliberately shuttling into spaces that will get them right from the space into the hotel industry to be slaves. And I'm talking, I don't know, we need to talk some truths about some of these things that are being set up in the island that are masquerading as education institutions, but really are slave ships that are going to put out our young people on the auction block for the tourism industry and for the BPO as servants because they're not getting managerial positions within the tourism industry. Hardly. When they go through those spaces, it is when them go university that they might get a managerial position. And they probably won't get a managerial position because you're taking a manager from Cuba and from Dominica and from America and from France, from Europe and America and spaces like those. Right now we have a CARICOM conference underway right here on the island in Jamaica. And I'm looking at the themes that are going to be discussed over the period of time. So you have food and nutrition security on the list, and we'll see what comes out of that. Jamaica is now hosting the CARICOM is now being headed by Jamaica. Prime Minister Andrew Holness is now leading CARICOM for the next period. And let us see what happens out of that. I really do hope that there are some changes. I see St. Lucia calling for CARICOM to be disbanded. And this call has come time and time again. I see where I think it's the Observer or the Gleaner, one of them, pushing back on that, saying that it is, it's totally, off kilter, if you will, to make a suggestion like that. But we are going to have that discussion. I do not believe that we should disband this. I believe that we should revamp this, look again at it, and to see how. Because this, more than ever before, we're going to need this block. But we have to understand that these bilateral arrangements that we're making with the United States that come second to CARICOM, these arrangements with the United States, with Europe, with the UK, and and China, that these bilateral arrangements are already serving to disband, if you will, CARICOM. So whether you agree with St. Lucia's call to disband CARICOM or not, CARICOM itself has turned on itself through its bilateral arrangements with China, the United States, the European Union. And it's worse right now, if I tell you. It's worse right now because we are caught up in the Cold War. We're caught up in the Cold War, and there is a bigger war that's on the horizon, which is a proper World War III situation, not to talk about AI. We come forward. Hold on. My brother Alex is on the phone lines, but we did get through to Alex, so that something is wrong the other way. All right. Alex Minard, a true-born Winward Maroon. He has a BSc with honors in international relations from the University of the West Indies. He's an agriculturist. He's known for his work with the University of the West Indies concerning grassroots cultivation of cannabis. He's a cultural activist, a Maroon rights activist, and former Minister of Foreign Affairs for the Accompong Maroons. He is a oral historian. We don't have him online. Okay. Dancer and herbalist and renowned Granny Nanny of the renowned Granny Nanny Cultural Group. And, we have Siberia online. So I am announcing Alex, but it's Siberia that we've got online. But Siberia is going to come on and say, no, it's not Alex, it's me. From Fuisindig, Siberia, my little sister. How you doing?
Good morning. I'm well.
Right. I don't think you head out to the venue yet, but you're heading out soon.
No, we head out. I've been there since 5:30 this morning.
You do not say.
Yes, we've been there since 5:30.
Wow.
So we have vendors coming in. We had vendors coming in since last night. Mm-hmm. It's a nice vibe on the venue.
Wow, I can just imagine. All
yes.
right, so give us a paint a visual picture. Are you there right now on the venue?
I'm sitting in my car, yes.
All right. Paint a visual picture of the buzz and the hub and what's going on.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, Mama Fire's people are in, Rainy is in, Japanese in, Nardia is in, G-Wiz is in. The staff is setting up. We're making sure that everybody has a trash bag.
Right.
All the tents are out. The Turboplastic has their bottle of white rum, so when 10 o'clock comes, they will be started.
Libation time.
Yes, libation to kick off the day.
Yes.
And, it's just a nice buzz of energy in the morning. Up here feel really good. It's nice and bright and sunny. It's not too hot.
Right.
Which is good.
Right.
But yeah, it's a beautiful scene. Giving thanks for everybody for showing up and our strength for everybody staying with us throughout the years. It's a beautiful, beautiful morning.
All right. So we're looking forward to coming down. I'm leaving here exactly at 10 o'clock. I'm going to make Big A know so I'm not going to stand back here and talk to him. I'm driving out at 10. And I'm not even going to stop at my own yard. I'm heading straight to Portland.
All right. We're so looking forward to seeing you.
I'll be there in a little while. All right. Remind us, Sobs, of what's going to happen today. What the day is going to look like.
Yeah, so at 10 o'clock we're going to have John Kuno, that's coming to open the grounds and open the session. We're going to have Turboplastic. We're going to have Profile Chanted, Naya Bingi. We're going to have Kumina. And this year I said, rather than make the spirit take me, I'm going to actually be playing some Kumina with Turboplastic as a part of the show. We're going to have Jimbecan drummers. Mm-hmm. We're going to have Muta, as per usual, with his African dance party.
Yes.
And we're going to have iNation with the books. And Bev Carey going to be doing a book reading around. We're trying to make sure we have it on schedule so we see everything. Sister Amina, Neto, Dinsu. And then, a lot of fun family vibes. I want to make sure that everybody's there and feel like it's a great family affair today.
And I feel like, and I know people are coming from all over Jamaica. This year, I feel so out of water because my phone locked down. I'm not getting the people I'm writing to me. So we're heading out from Mobay. We're heading out from Kingston. We're heading out from Hanover. But I know they're heading out as usual from all across Jamaica.
Yes, for sure.
Right. The buses leave already from where we know buses are coming from?
The bus in Kingston still had space as of last night.
Okay.
So it's leaving from halfway tree. I think they're probably leaving soon, probably by about 8 o'clock.
Okay.
And then we don't have any buses coming from Montego Bay or Ochi, but I know there are lots of vehicles coming from those places. So if you go into the square, you will get a ride to Fuisinting like always.
As always. All right.
Yes.
So it's a busy time on the road. Remember safe, take it easy upon the road, and remember that sometimes people will get stopped and so on and so forth. So come and come.
Come ready for a good party today. I'm ready with your
yes.
With your empty belly to eat some.
I'm telling you.
We're ready to get chocolate tea this morning, so we start off the day on a good level.
Okay, but any coffee today? I Portland, coffee I got today. So.
No coffee never ready this morning. We're at 5:30, so we'll go with the
chocolate tea. I hope I can get some Blue Mountain coffee when I come.
Yes, I hope I can get some coffee when you come.
Yes,
for sure.
Yes,
we have to go with what was ready for me and the staff.
Exactly. So once again, it's African cultural themed, of course, African retention, Jamaican culture. That's on display today.
Yes.
That's basically what this is about. All right. Thank you so much. What's the cost to go?
Entrance fee is $2,000 for adults and $1,000 for children. And we have a group rate of 10. If 10 people or more, $1,700 per person if you bring in a group.
All right. So, and it's a family affair. You can't take your family.
Yes,
if you really want a Sunday out to just go chill in a vibe that is so Jamaican culture, African culture, so it's so real on the island, literally, to be in a space like that. Then today it's Fuwa Sinting. If you never decided, head there and I'll see you there when I get there.
All right, I'll see you there. Come on.
All right, say hi to Sister P. See you later.
I will.
All right. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Enjoy the best coverage for the things you own and those you care about. Protect what matters most with Life, Health, and General Insurance. The time by Sagicor Life and Advantage General is
17 now after 7 o'clock. You're inside of the Africa Forum. This is Running Africa, and this hour is brought to you courtesy of the Ministry of Legal and Constitutional Affairs. Thank you so much, Ministry of Legal and Constitutional Affairs. And we want to talk to Alex, and I'm not quite sure if we're getting Alex or Alex is going to have to call us because it seems as if it is from our end that we're having the issue. So here we are, because Subira called in and she was able to get in. So I'm just thinking that this might be the situation. Let me know if you've got Alex online. And, let me see if I'm so sorry. There was a longer break. I didn't realize. Winward Maroon. Good morning, Alex. Greetings, my brother.
Good morning. Greetings, greetings, big sister. Peace and love.
So I already introduced you, so we're good.
Yeah, man. Great, man. Peace.
Yeah. Alex, you know, you're multifaceted. You're doing quite a few things, so we never know what we're going to get when we call, when we're calling you, when you come on air. But this morning we're talking about the rebirth day of Kumina, unity with the ancestors. First of all, your interest in Kumina, and how did you get involved in Kumina?
Well, the first thing that I think everybody ought to know is that Kumina is one of the main backbones. If anything can have more than one backbone, Kumina is one of the main backbones of Jamaican culture, and is a major part of Mayal, the Jamaican Mayal tradition, spiritual tradition overall. And for those who don't know, Mayal is our indigenous religion, our first religion and spiritual system of Jamaica, which is, of course, the intersection of the African traditions that came to Jamaica and the indigenous Arawak Taino traditions of the land, right? So we see where we don't see the real culture, the real spiritual side of our culture anymore. And it's just as a part of my initiatory process, passing through the different stations, as the revivalists would say. And Kumina is a vital station. And this is part of my personal push to preserve the culture, and as well to ensure that people know that there is spirituality in Jamaica.
Of course, it's a question that I've been asking. I know there was a Kumina conference on the island, a revivalist conference on the island recently. But I've been asking this question about the spirituality and the extent to which we're losing the spirituality from revivalism, if you will, but also from the other offshoots, which Kumina is a part of that, but Kumina even standing by itself. And what do you think is responsible for that? The fact that we have somehow exchanges spirituality for something a little bit more commercial?
I think, being 100% honest, I think that fear, as ingrained by Christianity and other post-colonial or colonial mindsets and colonial paradigms, fear is everything. So when I move around, even in Portland here, and I'm giving people flyers, that sort of thing, for the Kumina next week, Saturday. Many of them, you hear them say, boy, I'm afraid that there's something there, you know, boy, I love it, but you go up on a level, I'm afraid. And this is why the theme is unity with the ancestors.
All right, talk to us about that theme and talk to us about the event.
Yes, okay. So when we say unity with the ancestors, you asked a question before. And unity with the ancestors is a theme that we set forth to address this issue. In other words, to say to people, look, our ancestors are not demons. Our ancestors are not evil. The spirits of the land are not demons. They are not evil. That before 1840, when Christian evangelism really started in Jamaica, this was our way of life. This is what the national heroes were recognized, at least the three main ones, I would say, the real fighters who fought for us. Grandy Nanny, Sam Sharp, Paul Bogle, right? These three people were deeply spiritual people, indigenous spiritualists. So we're saying, look, if you can recognize them in school and say, oh, they did this thing to free us, what was the tool that they used to free us? It was the spiritual technology of our people. So we're saying, let us put aside that colonial paradigm that tells us to fear our ancestors as ghosts and as evil beings, demons. And let us unify with them. Let us remember them again.
All right, brilliant. And this is going to be when? Tell us where and when?
This is going to be next week, Saturday, the 12th of July. And it's going to be at Ponciana Park in Fairhill. Ponciana Park is the official community football field and community center of Fairhill, which is near Port Antonio, for those who aren't exactly sure. And they can get in touch with me. They need deeper directions, a pin, as everybody using GPS now.
Right. Go ahead and give us your contact that they can call.
Sure, you can. Everyone can get through to me at either Instagram, alex.myalpriest, that's ALEX.MYALPRIEST, or you can get me on WhatsApp, 876-495-7370. All
right, and the time, when is it starting?
Well, the drum should start at 6 p.m. promptly, because this is we're observing all levels of tradition. And the tradition is, as the Kumina song said, day and our light till our morning. We start at 6 p.m. and we journey through the night to 6 a.m.
All right.
So from Saturday to Sunday.
And you say bring a bottle and come and buy a bottle, you mean?
So by a bottle we mean rum, gin, brandy, that sort of thing.
Libation.
Yes, libation.
All right.
So we are ensuring that we have we're ensuring that we get people into the mode. This is how we communicate with our ancestors. This is how we remind them that we love them. So bring our bottle and come.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Alex. And this is going to be on July 12th, Saturday, July 12th.
Yes.
In Fairhill. Thank you, my brother.
Yes, right. Thank you very much. Have a great night.
The Ministry of Legal and Constitutional Affairs. Now, quickly, we've been talking about BlackRock in this space for the very, very longest while. And thank you, Kwame Pianke, for sending me this story because I missed it. BlackRock, if you haven't heard all the discussions we've had on BlackRock over the last umpteen years, many years into recently, COVID, during COVID, after COVID, because this company is featuring seriously in the new economic world order and the fourth industrial revolution. So you have to know everything that they're doing. In the same way, Palantir and Elon Musk with, Grok and Sam Altman with OpenAI and you name them. Peter Thiel, we just talked about Palantir. All of these companies are featuring, these are featuring heavily in the new world order, the new economic world order. We're understanding that the American investment firm BlackRock has halted its efforts to secure investors for Ukraine's recovery fund due to growing uncertainty surrounding Donald Trump's presidency, and this is according to Bloomberg. Interesting story. The United States, it says, did not support the initiative which forced BlackRock to end talks with potential donors. We're going to be looking into this to see what it means. What are the implications? The U.S. investment giant froze negotiations with institutional donors back in early 2024. The decision was linked to political uncertainty following Donald Trump. But it's good to read about what was planned. BlackRock, in partnership with the government of Ukraine and other international partners, had been preparing a recovery fund worth more than $15 billion. Of that total, 12 billion, was expected to come from private investors. So we're watching this to see what that all means. Also, we talk about CARICOM meeting here in Jamaica right now as we speak. The issues that they're discussing are pretty interesting, so we should keep an eye on that. Let's see what comes out of CARICOM this time around, and let's see how Jamaica is going to lead the process. Because Jamaica is now leading, I think it might be easier for so many of us who have questions regarding actions that are regional, even global, but also connected back to us locally. Take, for instance, the likelihood of an oil spill in the Caribbean waters out of the mining oil in Guyana. Why hasn't CARICOM addressed that, considering that there are no safeguards in place for insurance payments or anything of the sort from the companies involved with this? So that's a question for CARICOM. It's a question for Jamaica. So let's see what comes out of that. So while CARICOM is meeting, and then I said earlier too that CARICOM, it's an interesting thing with CARICOM because there's a call for, and every time this comes up, right? Disband CARICOM. CARICOM is, a Trojan horse. CARICOM is not worth its weight in gold. CARICOM is floundering. It's like the Africa Union. So we hear that a lot in terms of the impotence of CARICOM. I do not agree with those arguments. I agree, though, that there are issues, serious systemic issues, to be addressed within CARICOM to make this a more impactful, powerful grouping. Also, a grouping that can leverage that power or understands how to leverage that power. Also, there is Barbados started this under Mia Motley, right? Where we saw CARICOM moving towards Africa, with Afri-Exim Bank and so on, and discussions about communication and connections, including flights between Africa and CARICOM. I don't know that Jamaica is going to continue this great work that was done by Barbados. It's just in its infancy, so Jamaica really needs to continue that. But I'm not seeing it on the agenda. I don't know if it's just reporting, but I'm not seeing that on the agenda. All right, so while we talk about CARICOM, the leaders of the BRICS group, they are gathering in Brazil for a summit also. So we're paying attention to that. The Al Jazeera is reporting that as Brazil hosts the BRICS summit, Russia's Putin, China's Xi, they are not actually going to Brazil, but that the leaders are expected to decry U.S. President Donald Trump's trade tariffs while presenting the bloc as a defender of multilateralism. So let's see what comes out of that also. So these are some of the stuff we're watching. Let me take a quick break.
Safe, reliable, great.
The founders, those who ideated and took the idea to Carl Young of Irie FM, and also that interview you heard last week, Shane Clark, and you'll be hearing Big A, Clyde McKenzie, Bob Clark, talking with myself, and this was done about 10 years or so ago. So we are going into the celebrations for Irie FM's 35 years. We're featuring a series including two major events, and you will have heard the ads running. One is on August 1, which is the actual anniversary date, the founding of the formal anniversary date of Irie FM. And this is going to be at Kaya Drax Hall. And then there'll be another one on August 31, and this will be at Little Ochi Seafood Restaurant. And this to test, because there was the test, but then after that,
before the official.
Okay. I'm so sorry. We carried that last week, so let me go to another track. My bad. So sorry. All right, so we're going to be hearing from Clyde McKenzie. And once again, congratulations to you and to Bob on the Order of Distinction. Well deserved. Also to Lloyd Stanberry. And before that, Carl Young.
Yeah,
talking about the principles of Irie FM.
Yes. The foundation.
The foundation. Every time we have a conversation about Irie FM, we go to you and Bob, and we talk about the idea, the concept. So we want to start there. We had this conversation with Shane Clark, where we enter. So when and where we enter is important this morning.
Well, it all started with Bob, Bob and I had this great friendship from Radio Northeast, You mentioned that station, which is significant to the development of what we call Irie FM today. Mm-hmm. And so what happened was that the policy was that the government was shuttering all of the regional stations, which were extremely popular. Radio Northeast was, massive at the time. Incredible. And so a lot of people were wondering why the government chose to shutter these stations. So Radio West was closed, Radio Central and Radio Northeast which was in Ocho Rios.
And Radio West in Montego Bay, Radio Central
right.
in
Mandeville.
Yeah.
And then the idea now, because the then Prime Minister Edward Seaga, he said that he was going to have these stations, which were really government owned, he was going to have them commercialized, so that each of these regional entities would now become privatized. Mm-hmm. So they were going to give out licenses for these entities. And Bob, knowing Carl, he said, we're not going to just go down without fighting.
That is Radio Northeast. Radio
Northeast is not just going to close and we just go out like that.
And so, Bob, why did you think, that this was important to hold on to this? What was the thinking behind it?
I don't think it was a thinking to hold on to it. The thing about radio is that it doesn't walk away from you. You just don't walk away from radio. It's not a chapter in a book and you close it and that's that. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That was something that we wanted to maintain for the love of it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so you were having that conversation with clients. Well, I know you both from Radio. I remember you both from Radio Northeast, and that you were pretty close. So you were having that conversation at the time. That
we had a business.
Right.
We had a business together. On Simmons, we had our offices on Simmons Plaza. Yeah, Simmons Plaza.
I remember that. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. And we had a newspaper.
Yes.
The North Coast Journal. Yes. When the first papers on the North Coast.
Can we back up a little bit and talk about the North Coast Journal? Just one second. I didn't remember it in all of this. So you and Bob had this newspaper on the North Coast.
That was just part of it, because it was like, it was a marketing PR company, Wonder Promotions, right? And what happened then was, we had clients like CC Bakery and the Ruins and all of that, right? Right, Bob?
A little pub, yes.
Yeah, the little pub. So we were handling these. The Americana. The Americana
hotel. The word bash. Remember that?
For reggae bash. Yeah. The name bash came from because we had done a New Year's Eve bash over at Americana. What's his name? Charles Gourlash. No, it wasn't Gourlash.
Gourlash.
Yes. And so we did this big New Year's Eve party. So we were working and having all of these accounts.
So, and that was at the same time you had the number one station on radio.
No. That was before. That was after Radio Northeast.
Oh, that was after.
Right.
All right.
Because that was that transition.
We had to create something to make some money.
We had to eat. We had to eat. And so that's where the newspaper, the North Coast Journal came about.
All right, so Bob, do you remember, if you can, because we know you're the ideator in terms of the germ of what Irie FM, of the radio station, for the radio station. Do you remember the process? I know you were talking it out with Clyde, but what struck you? What did you say to yourself in your head?
The word germ, sperm is good.
All right, the sperm.
We wanted to do something in radio, and I wanted to continue radio. So when we heard about the divestment, we said, all right, look, let's try and see if we can get this thing together. We wrote an application. Clyde was thinking of some other people, which are probably, I knew Carl. In fact, I was working for him.
Bob was a singer in Carl's band, you see.
I put the band together.
I know.
You was a band leader, right?
Yeah.
I saw him perform.
Yeah.
Big Bamboo. I saw you perform that song.
You performed Big.
Well, that's a private song. Anyways, we took the application to Carl, and of course he would have had none of...
No, Bob. I think we need to backtrack a bit. So Bob and Carl now started to have discussions about the station because I didn't know Carl. He was very close to Bob. I mean, they had this working relationship. And Bob told...
Before that, Carl was not just... Carl was my friend,
That's that's what
working relationship.
No. I'm saying that because that's why you chose him.
Yeah.
Right? I didn't know him. Right?
Because you were thinking of other investors who could invest in this.
To be
One
honest,
of them even won a radio station today.
So that was a possibility, but he was very, very straight that he wanted Carl to be the investor. Well, when Carl met me for the first time, it was very, amusing. I was taken aback because he said something to me to the effect, we can't give you the entire thing on because that's not fit for airplay.
NFAP, yes.
But he said, Carl, Bob, this what's it not called? Genius. Yeah, come show me.
Mm-hmm.
Of course.
It's not even talking to you.
Because it's the first time I'm meeting me. So that I was taken aback because, and then,
you were what, 21, 22?
I was in my 20s. Yeah. You're like a kid.
Yeah.
And Carl really take me aback with, and take a puff off and cigarette. Papa, this is watch it, not clock. Here's your bring come here.
Right. Don't say that word again. The C one.
Yes. And I said
it.
I said, wow. But Bob, I could see the embarrassment on Bob's face too. Mm-hmm. And when that happened, he spoke to me for about 2 hours, which was unusual because he didn't speak to people that long because Bob warned me about all of those things. I said, he's this kind of a person.
What was it? What was the sell in terms of getting him to?
He didn't want to buy.
No, we never sell him.
No, he never wanted to buy.
No, what was the idea that you brought to him?
No, because when Bob, I thought it was a very hard sell. Honestly, because what was happening is that Carl said, "Me don't know nothing about radio, so we're not getting me now." WKRP is that's the only.
In Cincinnati?
In Cincinnati. That's the only idea because of his notion he had about radio. And that was not a very flattering notion about radio. Right. So I'm saying, only WKRP me know about it.
And that was a popular television program at the time.
So I'm saying, only that me know.
Yeah.
You understand? And that, it took some convincing. Well, what happened was that Bob had to corral Carl's secretary, right? At that time, Carl had his office over
on the Great House,
on the Great House, right?
Compound, yeah.
And what happened then was Bob and we came in, right? And the girl Audrey. Yeah. So they dictated the letter to Audrey, and then we basically forced Carl to sign it. I mean, that was right there, Bob.
Yeah, man, you're good, man. You're good.
Yeah. So what happened was that
I'm sorry, Pat, so this letter would be
go ahead.
No, that's a letter of application.
Okay.
That's an application letter.
Let me say something that's interesting here, because when he got the letter to sign, it was out of disgust. He stamped it to the green stamp he had, Coconut Grove Great House Limited, and said, okay, fine, go on.
Go on now. So it was kind of disgusted.
So did he know that it was the application?
He knew. Okay. No, because we told him that was the application.
But he read it.
He read it.
He's applying for the license.
For the license. But he was not very comfortable because Carl was making good business from what he was doing, his concession with the tourist board, where, he had these parties. That's where Bob was performing. There was one down at Dunn's River. There was one at White River. There was one up here. There was one at Great River.
Reggae Lobster party.
So there were, and these were fabulous parties. Yeah. Where Carl would joke. What was it? This is where it was like with the tourists. You're going to take some money off of the tourists then.
Rob some tourists.
Yeah, rob some tourists. Carl is a charismatic figure, with his droll humor and so on. It was
Africa Forum. My very special guest in the studio, Bob Clark and Clyde Mackenzie. The story that has not been told, the half that you have not heard, the Irie FM story. Irie FM, the beginning. Thank you so much for all the comments on the social media. We'll try and get to them sometime throughout the program. We hope that we'll be able to do that during the program this morning. But Clyde, Bob, the social media they've got us. It is something else on the social media. So thank you so much for that. And I'm recognizing now that so many of our listeners have not heard the Irie FM story.
They don't know.
Feedback.
They don't know.
Well, let us pick up and follow the application that was left with the security guard at JBC. It might not have reached the place that it should have reached.
No, we didn't know, right, Bob?
We didn't know where to drop the thing off, but we were told that we could leave it at JBC. So we dropped it off at the security gate, and we begged the guy, because we knew him from the association with the JBC.
Okay.
Luckily, or blessed, or whatever, he did what he had to do, and that was that. We never heard about it.
We never hear about for another 2 years.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
No, we never hear.
2 years? So
no, we got no response, no reply. But one of the things was that in the intervening period, I know that, there was interest being expressed in getting a license. And imagine other people, as Bob said, were trying to get license. But
so this was something that was being discussed in the industry.
No,
right?
because remember, the license was a public thing.
Right.
Because the then Prime Minister Siaga had made the announcement that this was what was going to happen. That was when I think they started CPTC2, because when they shut down these regional stations, and there were a number of other things, and then
did you at least know what the cost would be to operate a radio station?
We weren't, no, I don't think we weren't
concerned.
No, because we thought that Carl was sufficiently flushed with cash to deal with the thing.
So that was not a question.
But it was not, because at the time, it wasn't enormous. No, it was an enormous amount of money, to set up something like that. But at the time, what I can remember is there was discussion, I know, with Colin Mills. Colin was a critical player in all of this, because I think he was consulted. Babsy Grange was the point person in determining who would have gotten the license. And I know that Colin Mills had been in contact with her, and he was saying, them boy with Carl, that group there. Them forget it, because they're not political, and because I think Colin was interested in making sure that there was credibility and there was no political backlash, even though Colin was a politician. But he was saying, no, Carl was a man who was not known for any kind of political inclination and things like that. And to be very honest with you, Carl never, ever interfered in the news policy of the station. Not when I was here.
Never.
I mean, except anything, except Mr. Mackenzie, wagwan. You know, but that is, in other words, you wouldn't get a directive saying, you know, I think we should push this line or that line. No. Carl wasn't into that. Never. Right?
And so that Babsy Grange was, what was her position at the time? Because
she was in the ministry. She was a minister of state, I think, for information. I think Ed Bartlett might have been the minister at the time. But she was, because, I mean, Mr. Seaga made her the point person.
You know, I was interviewing Bab. Every time I interview her, she mentioned her role in Irie FM. And the last time I interviewed her, it was at the event for Miss Lou, the unveiling of a statue.
Yes.
And she talked about that again and what Irie FM means to her.
No.
She sees herself as family as a
No. Yeah. She is pivotal. Yeah. You can't talk about the Irie story and you don't talk about Olivia. You know?
We were hoping that we'd have her this morning.
Yeah, well, I don't know. She might be.
She's tired. No, she's resting, I'm sure.
She's tireless.
Yeah.
Trust me.
Well, if anybody's listening, and we've been trying to reach Babsy Grange, let her know and see if she come on and tell us.
No, but she was critical to the process. So in about 1988, that's when we were sitting down at Colin. Bob?
Yep.
Right? One Friday evening, we're sitting down at Colin because that's where we would have our libation. Because we
libation.
we had a Bob and I had an office in Colin's place.
Yeah,
because we had gone into an arrangement with
closed down our newspaper and went with Jamaica Record.
To Jamaica Record. So right
yes, I remember that, yeah.
Yes, so we had gone into an arrangement with Mark Ricketts at the time. So we had an office down there. Double V.
Yeah.
Right? And so what would happen is that we would repair to Colin's bar.
Yeah.
For refreshments.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes we spend an entire day refreshing ourselves. But I mean,
75%.
Stimulating discussions. I mean, because that's what to credit my friend Leah Kim Semas, that's where the ideation was taking place.
Yeah, you know what's important? Let me back up a little to tell you about Connie Witter's relevance. All of this. You know what's up? No, man, I know she's not with Irie, but Double V.
No, she was great, man.
But Double V is where she sent me as a young journalist to say, if you don't go to Double V and sit down with the man, you will not know what's happening.
Yes, Connie. Incidentally, Connie was Earl Witter's wife.
Right.
Yes. But Connie was a character.
So WV was a journalist.
No, that was a place. Yeah. So, I mean, we'd sit there sometimes. Yeah. All people. I mean, Arnold Bertram, Danny Melville, you name it. I mean, Ernest Smith. Everybody was coming there. That was a place.
So while you were there, you're saying this is where you would be having these conversations regarding what this would be.
Right, yeah, man. That's where a lot of that discussion took place. But what happened, Bob, was that we were there one Friday evening, as I said, and while we were there, we heard the news that a group, which included Carl Young and so on and so forth, had won the bid.
Yeah. Well, and this was the first time you're hearing it.
That was the first time.
So Mr. Young would not have known either?
No, he wouldn't have known. No. So we came up and we told him and so on.
In fact, he had the draft license. Remember this thick book about 40,000 pages? And he gave it to us and said, go look upon it and see when I want to take out or when I want to put in or something. But change. It took about 4 or 5 days. Gave it back to him.
No.
And I think a lot of the changes that we made in that book stand today.
Well, the other thing, now that is where Lloyd Stanberry came in. It was at that juncture that Carl, I think Lloyd, it was between Maureen Sheridan and Art Richards that Lloyd came in because because they were, Maureen and Hart were part of Carl's music thing. I mean, I think Maureen was running
music.
Yeah, Maureen was, I mean, two white girls on a minibus.
Yes.
Yeah. So Maureen and Stanberry, because they had known each other, and Hart Richards, Hart married the Bloomingdales. Hart passed. Yeah. But he married, which was had all these bands on the North Coast. Hot Peppers and all of these big bands in the hotels. So he and Carl had this Young Heart. It was Young Heart music with this Grove, under this Grove thing, and I think that's where Lloyd came in, and then
his band was Happiness Unlimited.
Oh,
Hart Richards' band, yeah.
That was one. Yeah,
one of the big ones.
One of the big ones. Yeah, because Nicky OJ used to be part of that band, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And all of that. So, Hart and Maureen, I think, brought in Stanberry. Lloyd. And because of his legal thing, because, Carl, he was doing things for Carl, and then Carl just roped him in. And then what would happen now is that Lloyd would now start coming every Saturday for the next 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Every Saturday and every Wednesday, Lloyd would come down. And we would meet and we would discuss and we'd spend the day just dealing with...
And which year are we looking at now?
You're looking up, that is after 88.
No, 89.
No, because so 88 into 1990.
Right.
That's when we start, these discussions were taking place, as to, how we fine tune this and that and, who we're going to use here and there and,
And so where did the idea, or at what point did you decide that Irie FM is the name of a station? Whose idea was it?
No, the Irie FM, the name of the station, that is something that I think took place between Lloyd and Carl.
Straight Carl.
And Maureen, don't you?
No.
I don't know if Maureen. No, Maureen could have been involved.
Let me explain. Let me tell you. Carl was the MC for the shows here.
He would say everything when he say Irie. In turn, Carl was an unconventional MC. In turn, all him back is the most natural MC you'll ever see in your entire.
Him in action. Yes.
No, brilliant.
Yes.
Yeah, because man, Irie, and so that is
his line.
That was his line. So, but I know Lloyd was also involved in that kind of thinking. So the Irie thing, we're the Grove Broadcasting. We came up with the name Grove Broadcasting.
Yeah, because he had
Grove.
Yes, we came up with Grove Broadcasting Company.
Mm-hmm.
But the Irie FM was really between that
Mr. Young and
Lloyd. Yeah, because it's.
And at what stage? And I have to take a break in 6 minutes. But at what stage did you? Because now you have a license. Now you have a name. You have a lawyer on board. And so it has moved from just an idea to now a reality. You've got a license. What was the next move?
Getting equipment.
Yeah.
Getting cars, buy equipment.
Yeah, because that was another step.
And by equipment, what we're looking at? We're talking about?
No, well, you're looking at the board and you're looking at transmitters and you're looking at all of these things. Towers.
Transmitter sites.
And
so Radio Northeast didn't have anything?
No.
We went down there, Carl and I went down to Mutual Life building to look at some of the equipment.
Mutual Life building, yes.
Yeah, the Mutual Life building, yes.
And he was a little taken aback, No,
because Carl is one of the things Carl always wants the best, especially when it comes to equipment. When Grove Studio was the best at its time, and he brought in the best people. You had a Steve Stanley. You had a Stephen Stewart barrier here. You don't get better than that. That was the kind of thing that anything that Carl touched, he wanted the best for it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That was his approach.
Mm-hmm.
So that is where now he brought in, you had Lutz Meyer. who was
the studio.
No, yeah, he built the studio.
Recording studios.
So he got
that was David?
No, Lutz Meyer. No, Lutz Meyer got David Camp.
Oh, okay.
So Lutz Meyer, David Camp now was a brilliant engineer.
There's a difference, you know. He went for Lutz because Lutz as so
Lutz
studio.
And then Lutz found
David,
who was had done like
25
some of the top stations in Florida.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
This was the 26th.
So David Camp now, and this is now where we're bringing now our brilliant Jamaica now, Duval
Pearson,
one of the most brilliant minds I have ever known, and I say that without apologies.
Yes, yeah.
Unbelievably brilliant.
We agree with you.
You understand?
That we experienced that. We talk about it on the other side. But so Duval came in alongside David Camp.
Yes, so that's early.
That was very early.
Yeah.
So you're talking about 89?
No, 90.
90 now.
Yeah, that's an early 90.
Early 90. Mm-hmm. And transmitters now. So what about transmitters? Because you can't use JBC now have nothing.
No.
Radio Northeast didn't have transmitters of its own.
No, well remember, we started Irie started as a regional station. Most people don't remember that.
Right.
You see, Irie was a phenomenon across the coast.
Portland, St. Mary's.
Yes, the same areas,
St.
right?
Thomas,
yes.
St. Thomas.
So, but then we'll tell you the story of how we use the test transmission, really, because Carl didn't have a cent. We didn't have a cent in the budget for promotion. Not a penny we had for promotion. And you talk about going viral, you hear people talk about going viral.
Yeah.
Irie went viral before viral was viral.
All right. So normally, quite a few things we're talking about. So the money was spent then on the equipment, the things that were necessary, the console, getting the engineers, putting up the transmitters, and we were...
Because remember, before 1990, Bob and I don't get a cent,
No.
Eh?
No.
Not a penny. All these years we don't want
from 86 to 80 to
1990,
not a penny.
In the pocket.
I was the first. I became the first employee.
Right.
Right.
But I hope you were at least back paid.
Back paid.
Maybe.
No. Back pay. No. Hey, listen.
So from 88 to 90, you're doing this. This is voluntary work, literally.
Well, technically, we're putting in sweat equity.
Yeah.
We're putting in our skills and know-how into the venture.
The observers. I'm like double checking. Anyway, but it says join the peaceful protest against genocide and mass starvation this Sunday, July 6 in Montego Bay at 4 p.m. Petition the CARICOM heads of government to take action against Israel to stop the genocide. The CARICOM conference will be held in Montego Bay. This peaceful demonstration will take place in a safe and secure area. There will not be a march, and they give you a WhatsApp number and so on to call. So it's on Instagram, and it's really interesting the way it is posted. I'm not seeing the story, so I probably should go to the link in bio. But anyway, so it seems as if there's a protest. We spoke earlier about the signage, the banners that were put up across Montego Bay and within the vicinity of a conference center. And kudos to those who did that. And shame on you to those who took it down in this land well, we used to be a stickler for human rights. We used to be the land of Mwalimu Marcus Mosiah Garvey. We used to be the land of Rastafari. We used to be the land that stood up against apartheid and drove the protest against apartheid. And now, I don't know where these Johnny-come-latelys come from, that you're taking down these signs in Montego Bay that says free Palestine, free Gaza, stop the genocide. I cannot understand the thinking. To me, what Jamaica is becoming and what Jamaica has become is enough for us to hang our heads in shame. I'm ashamed to be identified with that action coming out of Jamaica. And that has gone global, you know. People, the thinking, and I, you know, the thinking that we're seeing coming out of Jamaica now, whether some government or wherever, this kind of thinking of the way we treat Haiti, for example, the way we treat Palestine, the way we treat the DRC, compared to the way we treat Rwanda. Rwanda is our friend. Dominican Republic is our friend. So we have become part of we're thinking that the authorities, the powers that be, those who are making decisions, have become the colonizer, the enslaver, and are acting this out. And this for us is we're at a critical juncture where a decision has to be made. And those of us who are frustrated and just terribly upset and angry, righteous indignation about where we see our country going as it relates to human rights and justice and equal rights. That those of us who are angry and frustrated and just downright can't take any more, we're going to have to get above our butts and do something about this. So I like what I see coming out of Mabay. I don't know who are the drivers behind the protest that's scheduled for today or the signs that have been put up in Montego Bay. But kudos to you. I stand with you 100%. We stand for something or we fall for anything. What has happened to us that we find ourselves on the sides of the enslavers? Crazy times. Behind Irie FM, it's a story that we haven't heard before. So many of us haven't heard before. We're seeing that from your responses. We have a listener asking on the social media, where do we get the idea from? Who turn off the radio? Even that. So there's so much that is not known, and we can't do it all in a few hours. And I'm listening and thinking, wow, we need part 2 of this, because we don't even touch the programming yet, and the first employees, and we're just at the transmitters and the console. But Clyde McKenzie is here, Bob Clark is here, and they are the ideators behind Irie FM, the station that we now call Irie. I was saying earlier, Clyde, that you would stop me from saying Radio Irie. Yeah, that was not the brand.
No, that's not the brand. Irie FM.
Right. So, all right. So, how long did it take to get the studio up and running? Because you're doing this at the early part of 90.
Well, it was a few months that we took. David was here, you know, we had to make sure, David had some idiosyncrasies. Pepsi. You had to make sure he has his Pepsi in the morning, his cigarettes and his coffee. I remember all
of those things.
They have to be there. I mean, when David is going up to the transmitter site, I remember one day my secretary forgot to put the Pepsi in and the ice in the van to go up. And when they reached up there and David checked and there was no soda, Pepsi. He said, no Pepsi, no ice. David turned back up in Lilyfield, and David came back from Lilyfield because there was no soda. And because remember, those were not the days when you had cell phone and you could call and say, bring up some soda and ice.
No, but what about the shops in Bamboo? I'm just saying.
No, because David was, we had to organize that. Is big things of Pepsi
and lots of ice.
And plenty of ice.
I remember him. I remember how eccentric he was. All right, so
nice guy though, knew the business like the back of his hand.
Mm-hmm. All right, and simultaneously, I take it that you're now thinking, what is the format of the station? What are we going to do? Because Bob, when you came up with this and had these discussions with Clyde, were you thinking it was going to replicate Radio Northeast or?
No, let me say something to you. We at one stage we were thinking 60-40 in terms of the music format. Irie would play reggae, 60% reggae and 40%. And Clyde had to go speak with some agency.
Yeah, the advertising agency. It was
Let him tell you that story.
McCann Erickson. So what happened was that, we were grappling because we wanted to be different. Carl was somebody who loved the idea of having more reggae because, Irie. Lloyd was somebody who was already in the music business. So he was in favor of that, having something that was more leaning towards Jamaican music and reggae and so on. But I had to make a presentation at McCann Erickson. And when I went there, the question was posed, what is going to be the format? And I said to myself, but no, how do I make an elevator kind of presentation? Because telling them it's going to be 60-40 reggae and thing is not going to think. I said, it's going to be an all reggae form.
Of course, they fell out of the chair.
Everybody dropped out of the chair. No, the next thing I have to consider though is my job.
Yes.
Because, I was not authorized by the board
to make it all reggae.
So when everybody, after everybody recovered, smelling sauce,
Bob, you were in that meeting?
No, I wasn't there.
I was smelling sauce and all of that. Because the people were aghast. I said, well, Rockstone, how am I going to keep my job now? Because no, I said, so I called.
And this is not one small agency,
McCann was massive. It was international. Yeah. It was an international thing. And then I spoke to Carl, I spoke to Bob, I spoke to Stanberry. And they were, they said, Lloyd was one of the people who was very quick on it, and Carl and Bob and they all agreed that this is how it's going to go. So that was kind of hairy because there were some members of the board who were not into that kind of thing. I remember like Danny Melville of Chococo fame said, but Carl, but we need a little soca. This is all reggae thing, But that's another story.
That's interesting that you mentioned the board, because Danny Melville was a member of the board, and you talk about how important it was to feedback to the board at that time.
Yeah, but technically speaking,
the board was Carl.
It was Carl because it was Carl. Most decisions were made in terms of the highest level of administration. Programming and other things. It was really the four of us: Bob, Carl, myself, and Stanberry. Mm-hmm. Now, when it came to certain things, like signing documents for the bank and things like that, it was really me, Bob, me, Carl, and Lloyd, if anything. So, for example, we took out an overdraft. We took an overdraft from Mutual Security Bank. That was Acropolis.
No, not Simmons Plaza.
No. On
over the other side.
Other side. Danny Melville.
Mutual.
Yes. That's what we're. Yes. So Mutual Security. Mutual Security.
Yeah.
Bank. So we took out. I think it was at the time it might have been 750. It might have been 750,000 an overdraft.
For what?
Because just to, the day-to-day operations with the bank. But what happened, we never used that overdraft and from the very day we started, Irie started gushing money. Oh, it was like a printing press.
Wow.
And Carl used to say, when Carl going to go to Montego Bay, he said, go look some money, go earn some money. I rob the tourists, I earn some money because Carl really didn't see this as something that was...
He made a comment, one day, that when he was handed the official license, the gentleman, I think his name, was a representative from Portland or somewhere, said, I'm giving you this document to print legal tender.
Yeah, he said, I'm geared to print money.
What I mean, Bob? I said, but just like the man said, this is a printing press, it's going to make some money.
Yeah, man.
And the idea of the all reggae, you talk about the response from the advertising agencies and that the persons who were there. Was it, when you said they have, open mouth and so on, was it a negative thing or were they just...
It was negative because, all of our friends, when we started leaking the information to our friends and say, we're coming with this all reggae format. Broadcasters.
Not just ordinary guys.
And we can call names. Right? No.
Yes.
No, we can call names.
Don't call me, I'll call you.
No, we can call names.
Yeah.
Even Barry, who was the king of reggae at the time, Barry G, was saying, don't see how you can sustain that 24-hour radio station, format. So everybody, people had questions.
But we also recall somebody who became a good friend of Irie FM later on, but Lakim, who wrote that it wouldn't work in the newspapers. And we were looking at that to say, wow, but he did, but Lakim still need to apologize, by the way.
A lot of people in Jamaica did not understand the magnitude, the power of reggae. Reggae was coming from Russia. People sent us reggae from... in fact, we had a program called Reggae Around the World.
I remember
But Ken, you see, what really happened, is that this was something so revolutionary at the time. Because, remember, the songs that were... people who played reggae on some of the stations, even the national station, right, JBC at the time, they came under pressure. Of course, you had like the Dread at the Control and Mikey Thompson, and you had some.
Thompson.
Mikey Campbell. Yeah, Mikey Campbell.
Oh, the name you're trying to remember is Angela Campbell
from Radio Northeast.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. But all of these, you see, a lot of the experts at the time, it just didn't seem practical. And one of the questions that was constantly asked of me and Bob was, if that was such a brilliant idea, why didn't anyone else see it before? You see, that was the real question. How is it that nobody saw this idea of coming up with an all reggae concept? You understand?
It's not going to work.
It can't work. Somebody would have spotted this if this was such a brilliant idea.
You guys just come into the thing. What's the track record?
Yeah.
But look at it. Even the idea of 60-40 would have been in itself...
It would have been revolutionary.
Yeah,
but then to go all reggae...
But in terms of marketing, it would have been very confusing.
Right. And then to go all reggae, this you're talking about, this is a revolution, and it was going to be televised.
Yes. That was...
So how did you then, from that, because the money had to come in the advertising agencies. Obviously, in hindsight, we know it really was a printing press, and probably still is. But in terms of choosing the people now who would carry this, the voices,
wow,
the personalities.
You must remember, Radio Northeast had a pivotal role in the shaping of all of this. JBC, right? So there was Bob. You had me from there. We brought in a lot of our friends because, listen, Carl, we couldn't bring in established people because Carl wasn't interested in paying any money. You understand? Because I learned.
I don't know if that's a bad or a good thing, but here we are.
Carl not spending a bad dollar there. Yeah. So the thing is, we very, very innovative in terms of how we did our selection. Yeah. Now, one of the things is that we said music was the star. So by saying music is a star, what we did was we became less reliant on personalities. So you would remember in those days, it said, play the music. Right. We don't want to chat in.
Exactly.
Just play music.
And I had a lot of running with you as a result of that. No more than 3 minutes.
Jingle, because, when you saw the format, because we had a shot clock, and you know what kind of jingle to come in with. When to come in with a jingle, and when to leave. Because, we were very strict in terms of how, what kind of commercials could follow what kind. Because we were one of the first to set up the automated system where the logging and all of that. We were the first, actually, in Jamaica. In fact, many of the people from the other stations came here to learn that because I brought in some people from Texas. And they set up this. So I could sit at my desk and I could tell you how much money was being earned by the second.
And that is just tapping into the log, the logging system.
No, because the logging system was automatic, and it was tied to, the whole logging traffic, everything was tied, accounts, everything was tied into each other, you know?
So that the music was a star.
Yeah, the music was a star because we couldn't pay the big money because Carl was not onto that. So that is where now we started to look for talented people who did not have big names. So Art Richards' daughter, Lorna, she was the entertainment manager at Sandals. And she called me one day and she said, Clyde, I want you to listen to this tape. And she brought the tape. She said, this is one of our playmakers. And when I heard the voice, I said, oh my God. I said, Bob, you hear this voice, yeah? It was that of Kathy Owen. Unbelievable, the tone, the richness of the voice.
Wow, that to this day.
That was that is when all of these people. So you were known to us. Stephen C. Gary G. was our brethren from
Radio Naughty. I used to see him in Radio Naughty. I don't know if he used to work there.
No, he didn't work there.
He used to come check you.
Yeah, because Gary used to be at Footprints.
Okay.
Disco. And what used to happen is that Gary would supply me with records when I'm playing on the air. And let us just say again that you were the number one DJ on this place. Portland. Yeah, with their school, aren't you, Clyde Mackenzie? There was no longer any Barry G. It is what it is. It was Clyde Mackenzie, it was a new thing, you know. Right. And but Bob, you also were on air at Radio Naughty. So
yes, I did the oldest program on Sunday.
The oldest, yes.
I did the oldest feature. Memory Beat.
Yes, Memory Beat.
Yes. The Sunday Post. The entire day for Sunday.
Yes.
So with the mellowest voice parade. I
still contend that Bob has one of the greatest voices, just natural voices you hear on radio.
Yeah. Really now?
No, that's true, Bob. Mellow.
Just easy.
Really,
easy.
Yeah.
You know?
All right. So you got to Kathy like that. The others that you knew, Dion Mattis was
Dion Mattis. No, Dion Mattis was living in the same.
Yeah.
She was at Mallards, wasn't she?
No. She was at Mallards.
Yeah.
Big A, Big A was my cousin.
Was in the band.
I'm expecting him, by the way.
Big A was. It's his mother and my mother are two brothers. Children.
Right.
So from up Brownstown there. So he. Was known to me.
But then Angela Burns came in.
Angela Burns, no. Lloyd Stanberry brought her in.
Okay, from Montserrat.
From Montserrat. Right. He brought her in. But most of the people, Francis, it was people that we know, Stephen C., people that we knew personally. Shane.
Marshall.
Because those were perhaps two who had some reputation before they came here. Shane Clark and Devon, because Devon Marshall was big, the field marshal who don't partial. He was big.
Yeah.
Lloyd also, recommended Dennis Howard to me. But Dennis Howard was already my friend.
Yes.
Because we had one of the biggest dances in Ontario down at Double V.
Wow.
With King Jammies. In fact, that was when Dennis crowned Prince Jammies as King Jammies. With Barry G, one of the big, crowd. Because in those days, Barry G used to talk about roadblock.
Yes.
That was about 85. So I knew Dennis from that. From a long time. So then, but Lloyd would recommend people like Elise Kelly. Lloyd recommended, that was one of the other established names. Because she was, Elise Kelly was at fame at the time and she was big. She had a name. But most of the other people were, people we just identify their talent, see that them good. And Natalie, news editor. How did Natalie come to Irie? Natalie was still going to York Castle. Yeah, in our unit, she walked in one day into my office, and she said, you and I have the same birthday, and you and I speak Spanish. I said, what is this? Where she get all of that information, but she go do her research. Yes. But this is Natalie, you're talking about like a 15-year-old, right?
She came here in a York Castle. So she came from school, came in the newsroom.
But you see, you talk about our saying that you had to learn everything.
Yeah.
You had to know everything.
Yes.
Because that was a rule. Mm-hmm. Natalie was like a sponge. Because in the mornings, when I used to have to sub for Running African.
And that's something before you go on, because this is something that I should talk about. Because the way the thing was at Irie, in terms of you were the general manager.
But I would read news.
I gone to Africa.
Yes.
And you were doing Running African. And so the egos, even though they were egos, it was everybody's station.
The idea was to make it work,
Yeah.
There was everybody had to do what they had to do. Double up and be them everything.
Hey, Bob was the utility man in terms of feeling for everybody.
Yes.
Right. So
I was only 7 days a week.
But Bob, you were in the 2 to 6 slot, weren't you?
Yeah.
Yes.
No, sometimes
I had 2 slots in the radio in the morning and in the afternoon. I was doing 9, 10 to 2 or something. Dennis, I don't remember. I had 2 slots. Saturday morning I was one different slot, and then 2 to 6 in the afternoon, something like that.
No, but it was because getting the rhythm in that time was a little bit of a challenge. Yeah. And so the shifts, they weren't perfect when we got them, and because we're trying out people.
And this is what I talked about earlier, how flexible within the idea of this is an all reggae station, how flexible the thinking was to create and recreate the brand, to develop it, even while at the same time being true to that. This is a reggae station.
We had to do a clock,
Yeah, you had a clock.
That determined the programming.
How the day part.
What kind of reggae here? What the rhythms, the different rhythms would be played at certain times, And what time you take your commercials, and when you take your commercials, what you do after that, and all sorts of things.
Oh, you come in and you come out.
I used to come here.
And you must always end with gospel, yeah.
No, that's along the way.
I heard you and Shane talking earlier about the development of the library, Bob. And what happened was that we had to come up with new categories. For example, Alassana Bandele would have perhaps classified that as country reggae. And so we had these fine distinctions so that people, the on-air personalities who were new, we would give them an understanding in terms of what the tempo is supposed to be, how you lead into a stop set and how you come out of that stop set. And
for Benjamin Zephaniah, we could play.
Yes.
And we're playing a lot of that. Burning Spear. Let's go now to the music, because we talked earlier, Shane and myself, about how we got the music, a lot of the music. Did Irie FM set out to buy a whole lot of music, or was there a situation where, because we remember the music coming into Irie, people just coming in and say, may have their music.
Remember what I tell you about Carl and the budget?
Yeah.
All right. Keep that at the forefront of your mind in all this discussion. A big part Bob had for his program and for other program, Bob was able to use his connection, because Bob had significant leverage with Coxon and those people.
All the producers.
You understand? So, from a longer time. So he was able to go in there and, access a lot of music.
So, but what were you telling people? Because weren't you supposed to be buying this music? Come on,
they must give them. Dennis Howard
told them we have this radio station in the country and we play reggae, and they say, you're really here? Yeah, where you want? Pick up. In fact, I went to Coxon's place and they said, what you see is what you get. You know?
Dennis Howard, I mean, was huge.
That's quite a lot.
Huge in terms of bringing in music, because again, Dennis was connected to the music industry in a number of different ways. You know, he was coming in from Kingston. He knew all the personalities, all the producers,
He was
everything.
a producer.
Yeah, but producing music himself. So that was a part of it. Lloyd Stanberry, again, brought a huge amount of music into the system.
So the administration, we were talking about the presenters and so on and those who work on air, but the administration, because you are the general manager.
Yes.
And you talked about Dennis Howard. You said Bob was utility, but
Bob was program. Bob was programs.
No, I'm just saying you said utility, but just to define exactly what people
Bob
were
was
doing.
programs.
Right.
And Dennis started out as Bob's assistant. And then
I never remember that.
Then what happened?
Bob was whatever.
No, and then you had Pat Toll, who was sales.
Right.
And then there was a shift up, and Bob moved to sales.
Right.
And Dennis took over the reins of program.
Right. So and so at that time there was no marketing, just program sales.
No,
sales and
marketing. Yeah. And there was Corinne Stewart. You can't forget Corinne. Corinne was one of the early anchor in the system. You know, you can't forget Corinne.
And there was another one in Kingston. There was
Bev?
No, Bev came in later, I think. It was Corinne and...
No, Corinne, it was Corinne. I mean, for a long time.
Yeah, there was, what's her name? Althea and Donna.
Oh, yes. But Corinne was...
Yeah, but Corinne was the main...
Corinne was the anchor.
But this chick was really strong.
Yes.
In fact, she was one who would support her against Bash.
Sean, dark girl, Kingston.
Sean, no, she wasn't from day one, but she was early.
Very early, yeah.
Yeah, Sean was early, yes.
It's the Irie FM story, the half that has never been told. About before the beginning and into the beginning with the ideators and those who set the foundation. We'll be right back. An interview done many years ago. We're rebroadcasting this morning. Speaking with Bob Clark, Clyde McKenzie. You heard Shane Clark last week. Begay should be coming up. And I think we spoke with Lloyd Stanberry in this. But I don't know how much of all of that we'll have for you this morning. If not, we'll continue next week.
Well, I wrote the song.
Right.
And Bob, I think Dennis...
No.
Yeah?
No. What?
No, Dennis was, in the voices. Bob, Dion was there. And
Kathy.
Yeah, and me. And, But how it was, is that I had this air, the song, and then Bob going through the thing. And then what happened was we went to Stephen Stewart and Barry O'Hare. Right? Now they had this rhythm from Mickey Simpson's a project with Ernie Raglan. But it was if you notice the rhythm is save a little bit for me, sweet reggae music, just a little bit. It was a Mickey Simpson. So it was there already. But it had this guitar playing from the greatest musician Jamaica has ever produced, Ernest Adair Ranglin.
Yes.
Right? And so you hear that boom, 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 boom. So Stephen Stewart just said, all right, watch out. We're going to put that in because, I'm singing, reggae in the morning. And I said, no, man, we have the thing, man. And Stephen Stewart just went. I would just put the thing and just put the reggae in the morning. So that was, and this is now one of perhaps the most played song in the history of Jamaican broadcasting.
I would say so too, yes.
Yes. The other thing is that when you hear Ezekiel, that was another master stroke. That is Bob Clark.
We're going to come back and talk about Ezekiel on the other side of the Cashpot, Supreme Ventures draw, and also then to look later on in the program at the wider influence of Irie FM. Clyde McKenzie and Bob Clark in the studio, the founding members of Irie FM, live here telling Irie FM's story in this Heritage Month. The Irie FM story being told today, the half that has never been told. Irie FM, the beginning. In the studio, the ideators, the founders, those who started with a sperm of thought. I can't say germ of thought because Bob's having offices up. A sperm of thought, an idea that became this phenomenal radio station, Irie FM. Clyde, just a few minutes from the news, Bob, but we want to come back. You know what I'm getting from our listeners? They say we can't rush it. We have to do it gradually and have a part 2 next week.
Who's paying?
Andrea paying, so we're all right.
I'll pay, Bob. Bob knows if I'm paying, I get you.
Yeah, Andrea paying, so we're all right.
But I'm getting this overwhelmingly from our listeners because they can tell that we're about to rush the story. There's so much more. This is a long story. It is a long story, an interesting story, and a phenomenal one. So the jingles, we just talk about reggae in the morning. One that is everybody know it, can sing it in the island and off the island, and then there is Zekel.
Well, that is, most people don't know that that's Bob Clark. All the voices, Zekel's wife and Zekel and all of those things.
Bob, where did Zekel come from?
Zekel is a Samaritan, Zekel came from St. Mary. In fact, the idea is my mother's uncle. His name is Fedi. Well, he is deceased now. He used to live in Belfield in St. Mary. And that's how he spoke, oh God. And his sister, which is her aunt, she was Sue. And she had that fine voice, So some years ago at Radio Northeast, there was a problem in Tivoli. And I thought of it because it was said that Mr. Saga brought them beer, red stripe beer, and so I put a little thing together. But the thing at Irie was nobody believed that I would have worked, And so we did the 40 years. The one 40 years may wait. This is history. Yeah, 40.
And 40 years was really throwing shade, wasn't it, though?
Well, let me tell you something.
Yeah.
That now was Carl Young's personality coming to full force.
Yes.
Because, remember, Carl was a dance hall. It was a sound system. You mean a dance hall, a sound system operator. And so the throwing of shades and that kind of thing was something that, was all part of his thing. Because Carl was very witty, Now, I need to digress because when you're talking now about Pinky and Juby, now that is part of the fabric of Irie. Those little voices. So the Zekel, the Gary Sadler, you have to believe fundamentally, the Michael Manley and the Florizel Glasspool and the Edward Siaga. He did that under the supervision, and Bob, it was me and you, Bob, in this studio.
This studio right down here.
Right here. We gave him the lines and thing, and he did them. At that time, he was, he's still with Sandals.
Sandals, yeah.
Yeah, but he was over there in Sandals, Ocherias. And, he came, and then there were a whole ton of things. Because you had, Chalice did a version of the national anthem, which was brilliant.
And this is important because this is then again to say how true the thinking was to remain true to the brand. So we didn't have a brand of the anthem that sound.
No, everything was different.
I was telling somebody the other day that the very first name for this program that when I came on was Sunday Morning Coming Down, and so I was using the song Sunday Morning Coming, Ernest Smith, and we couldn't play it like that because Clyde wouldn't allow it. So we'd have to regularize it. So I asked Bob to regularize it for me. Remember, Bob?
Yeah, I remember.
And you come in the place and you just knock on the, and get some, and that's Sunday Morning Coming On, and that was the theme for a very long time. Just put a beat under it, and that was staying true to the brand, keeping the brand essence in that theme.
But So I'm going on with the jingle package because the Reggie and Jebby thing, that was Carl's idea. because Carl wanted to go frontal.
And that was throwing shade again.
Yeah, and because I was a little, I could tell you, I was very apprehensive about that kind of approach.
Yes. Including Ezekiel too.
I didn't.
You were apprehensive about Ezekiel?
I was apprehensive about Ezekiel. Oh my God. Oh, sorry.
So apologize properly.
I apologize, Bob. I mean,
we're coming from a situation where radio was necktie and coat and suit and things.
Yeah.
So he was not ready for the breakdown. You know, when he heard Ezekiel for the first time, the 40 years, I remember him stamping the floor. Take it.
Oh, you did?
There was a brother.
There was a brother.
I don't know if it was as strident as that.
It's very the same way.
No, you know when he got. You know when you remember when you got really anchored to Ezekiel, when Curtis called you. Curtis Mary called you and said, "What a thing there? Who do it? Is that brilliant piece?"
No, Curtis Myrie is my brother, my mentor.
That come like out, then is tell me something can't play African music. No, but listen, I think what it is doing is not so much that, let me say that, and I say the conflict is always good, because everything can be, smooth, and the more you have that conflict, the best result you get out of it. So we try to be our very best, when you have opposition.
I don't remember that stridency, but I can remember.
Shame on you.
No, and I humbly apologize.
Accepted, Bob?
I accept your apology.
Long
time.
I humbly apologize.
He came back to me and said, "Boy, Bob." In fact, he went in and did one himself. You remember, you did something about, I think the first Reggie and Jebby was you.
Yeah, I would have recorded them, but I mean, you remember now, it was because, Carl was saying, he kind of instructed Barbara and Philippa, right, at the time.
And the Pinky and
Juby. Because Reggie, Pinky and Juby, and that's on the Reggie and Juby thing. Because, I think it was really his insistence, and I was very reluctant. But I finally, went in for it. But these girls, Barbara, you need to know how Barbara Lindsay came to.
Right.
These were national. She and Stretch. What's her name again? Stretch.
They were from
the National Youth Service.
Right.
So they came here for a very short period to run the switchboard.
Right.
Yeah. And then when that time was up, they came to me and said, Mr. McKenzie, we want to stay here. I said, all right. Cool.
And Barbara is still here.
Barbara is still here.
And oh good, I knew. But she stayed for a very long time too, and was in the accounting department, traffic department.
Oh, Stretch.
Yes, and lived a few years ago.
I'm just trying to remember her name.
We are going to be joined by the Big A, and we hope to be joined by Duval. All right. Do I do this break? Yes, let me do this.
What? He is shutting up.
Yes.
In every way, he mixed the flour, he mixed the cement, because he was don't take it. No, he was the man in charge of all operations for Coconut Grove Great House, all the cooking, all the formula for the cooking. You understand?
Yeah.
The famous pork and all those things is very Carl.
Wow.
But he was brilliant. And he built this building, right?
Yes, man.
That was Barris. Anything
to be done.
Technically,
yeah.
You wonder how this man, he knew everything.
Mm-hmm. Well, Mr. Warren, good morning to you. We're going to the phone line to speak with Lloyd Stanberry. I know Duval is in an area where we're not hearing him too well on the phone lines, and so we're unable to speak to him on phone, but I don't know if Clyde is able to come back another time. I don't know if I'm going to we'll talk about that later on. Bob is in the area, so we know we can beg him to come in. And we promise you that we'll do a second part to this, because you've been asking for that. Now, for our listener who's been asking for Clyde McKenzie's contact and also for Bob Clark's contact, do you want me to read these out on air? You're going to get a lot of calls.
You mean a number?
Mm-hmm.
I'm scared of a number going out.
No, we're not going to read it out on the air. But Clyde is on Facebook at Clyde Paul McKenzie.
Yes.
And Bob is here at Irie FM. So 974-5079, 5051 or 5043. As we go to the phone lines to speak with Mr. Lloyd Stanberry, attorney at law. Lloyd, good morning.
Hi, good morning.
Right, Lloyd, I changed my name, Lloyd. It's Carbo, but anyway, you're welcome to the space.
Good morning, Carbo.
Thank you so much. Clyde Mackenzie's in the studio. Bob Clark is in the studio.
Hi, Lloyd.
Greetings, Clyde.
Greetings, Lloyd.
Honorable Bob.
Honorable Lloyd.
Honorable Lloyd.
Nice.
All right, so the beginning, the Irie FM story, the half that has never been told. We're hearing so much about when and where all of us entered in all of this, Lloyd Stanberry, and we know you were there from a very, very, very early stage. Do you recall at what stage you entered, Clyde?
With some legal advice on the studio, Grove Recording Studio. That was prior to my getting involved in Irie.
Mm-hmm.
And then while working with Carl on studio-related issues, I think during that time, the license was granted. An application had been made before I got there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And while I was there working with Carl, the license was granted. And I was invited to assist in the development of the plans to launch the station.
Mm-hmm.
So that's basically, in a nutshell, how I got started. I was working with Carl prior to the license being granted, and then once it was granted, in fact, if I remember correctly, the announcements of the granting of the license actually happened on my birthday. I can never forget that.
Yeah.
That was in 88. That was in 88, Lloyd.
88 December 19th. That much I can remember.
That was your birthday present.
And then, I guess so. And then we started to have meetings, I think weekly or twice weekly.
Twice weekly. It was Wednesday and Saturday. You would come down Wednesday and Saturdays.
Myself, Clyde, Carl, and Bob would meet regularly. Every Wednesday, every Saturday. For what, 2 years?
Yes, 2 years.
Prior to the launching of the station, yeah.
Wow.
That's basically how I got involved, So between 88, it was Gilbert's year, I remember that too. The license was granted when we were just recovering from Gilbert.
Mm-hmm.
So Gilbert happened in September, and the license was granted in December, I think.
Wow.
And then we worked together for 2 years, meeting every Wednesday, every Thursday, putting together plans for the, setting up of the station. So that's my recollection. And I hope it coincides.
No, it does. It's exactly how we really call it.
It's exactly how Clyde mentioned it this morning. Being an attorney, being an attorney, your involvement in terms of the development would also be specialized. Without giving away attorney-client privilege, what can you tell us about what that would have meant?
It was a specialized, because it was specialized. lot of everything. He was in everything. Lloyd.
As Clyde is explaining, my input was not just from a legal standpoint, because I had been involved in the music business, for many years prior to that.
Okay.
But from a legal standpoint, there are a number of things that had to be done. Company had to be incorporated. Agreements had to be looked at in terms of what the license prescribed and what we were allowed to do under the license. So there were some, I remember, that's true.
And the issue was we had to really move very quickly on our feet, because when we started, because we were so huge, we wanted to go island wide almost immediately. And there was a 4-year window. And what we had to do, and the government was counting it based on the time we were on air. And the argument we used at the time, remember, and I said to Carl and Lloyd, I said, look, what we have to do, and Bob, I said, what we have to do is we have to use the time that we have been registered as a business to tell them that is when we've been in operation and not when we've been on air.
Yes.
And so that how
I remember
soon,
that.
then,
Yes.
And then how quickly did we then, or soon after that, did we then go island-wide? Because it seemed to me as if it wasn't too long.
It wasn't it wasn't very long after that, because you see we had that 2-year lead up from 1988 when we had been registered. So, I mean, we used that plus the time we were on air to argue the case that we should go island-wide.
Bob, for yourself, in terms of that time of test transmission, because I'm thinking that it seemed to have been pretty smooth from, those of us who just danced in and, were enjoying it, and those who were listening. But there must have been some challenges for you programming even at that stage.
Not just programming challenges, we were having transmitter problems. There was a transmitter up in Lilyfield that would trip out every 22 minutes. Somebody had to go back up later and you remember that?
Every 22 minutes.
Every 22. By the time you leave Lilyfield to come back down here, you have to turn back because the thing trip out again. And that was a big job, I remember one time there was a lightning storm up at Lilyfield. We had a whole lot of challenges, You remember when the board burnt? The board burnt in October. And we had to use some other equipment to
lightning struck the board.
So we had a lot of challenges,
And that was in the first year that the lightning struck?
Yeah,
or was it the second?
First year.
Early, yeah. All right, so there were a lot of challenges that had to be overcome. As much as we're saying,
in terms of programming, this was a new program approach. We're doing reggae, which is a particularly straight beat, dam, 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 dam. And so to make it not become monotonous, we had to institute a clock. And it would tell what kind of reggae, because we have different genres, different beats in reggae. So we had to tell them where you have slow reggae, fast reggae, and determine what reggae would fall where. So that was something that I had to get up every morning at 4 o'clock. Be down here for catch the 8 o'clock shift and all of them. No, I'd leave here 4 o'clock in the morning and come back here at 8 o'clock.
But you were always on the road, Bob.
I was always
you weren't sleeping.
I never sleep.
But that's a point to be made. That
was one of the reasons.
People who are actually sleeping here. Because I know that for Devon Evans and myself in the newsroom.
Yes, we'd be here. We'd be here.
So Bob, and I hear what you're saying about.
And I don't walk the way I walk because I'm trying to look like Humphrey Bogart. I had an accident. I fell asleep. I was drinking coffee by the liter, and it wouldn't help. I just bypassed coffee now because coffee wasn't doing any good to me. We never got much sleep. It was hard work and lots of hours up.
The meetings with Lloyd, it would be all day. Basically, Lloyd would go in, at night, Saturday nights and Wednesday nights. It was long I wouldn't say tedious because we were excited, but they were long. It was long hours, because we were trying.
It was really,
go ahead.
No, Lloyd, go ahead.
I'm saying it was really, that we are talking, a lot of memories are coming back, it was really a lot of hard work, and I got to know the route from Ocho to Kingston with my eyes closed. Because, no, seriously, I'm driving, leaving Ocho close to midnight, almost every Wednesday. In fact, when the station started, we had a Wednesday night show that I participated in.
Musically speaking, yeah.
Right. Which ended...
Stop.
Yeah, I remember that car. What happened to that car?
I would fall asleep driving, seriously. I don't know how I
But you should have had the highway now. You wouldn't have had no problems.
That would be so easy.
China Highway. But Lloyd, this is a program that we have to do in 2 parts. We intended to do it in one, and we found out in the middle that there's no way it can be done in one. So we're calling back for part 2 when we look at the influence, RFM's influence on the industry, the music industry, the entertainment industry, and the media industry. Thank you so much, Lloyd.
Absolutely, no problem.
All right, okay.
All right, Lloyd.
All right, Lloyd Stanberry, they are very integral to the development of Irie FM. I've been talking about you
I must be famous, as Claire Mackenzie said.
No, I always say getting. I always say I must be getting.
Getting famous.
If you will, though, could you allow me just 30 seconds? I need to find 2 songs.
I'm sorry, I can't stop playing the one song where you give me.
No,
this reminds me of the early days of
in the whole experience.
All right, so I'll turn the mic off and you do that. All right. So it reminds me, Bob and Clyde, of the early days of Irie when Big A used to select my music for me and write my music sheet.
Well, I didn't know that.
You didn't know that, but Bob would have known. Bob, you never know that.
I wasn't sure what he was doing around there.
I plead the fifth. I just didn't know.
No, Big A was very helpful because remember that you talked about how we were coming into the system and you said to us, learn everything. And I came in for news. I was doing news, but then I was given a show. And not just one show. I had the Sunday morning show, and then I had the morning show.
And you had a show. You did Kathy's...
Kathy Owen's School Running. That was from 9 to 1.
To 1, or something like that, yes.
Or from 9 to 1, or 10 to 2.
10 to 2, yes.
Right, 10 to 2. And so I was doing that show, but little me didn't know the music. And so Big A recognized that quick time.
And helped out.
You know, so he was, you know, and this is something that happened at Irie. Gary G was helping Angela Burns like crazy. I mean, Mighty Mike would come in and say, listen, as a matter of fact, remember I was a Mike nurse, you know.
You were, and then of course Susie Q.
I was before Susie.
Because Susie, remember, Susie Q was supposed to be but she was
the accountant.
Like Susie was like 19, you know, when Susie get here, you know, and like Kathy, they were like 19, but Susie was very strong-willed and, you know, always seemed to know what she wanted. And so she was there, and then she found her way for some strange way. She found herself on the air, you know.
Right, because, and I can tell you that story, is that Mr. Young had put me to work with Mighty Mike because you were all saying certain voices not supposed to talk on the radio, you're supposed to have a radio voice like Bob. And so, that's true. So Mighty Mike had a really gruff voice as a DJ, so I was Mighty Mike's Mike. He was Mighty Mike. And I was Mike.
Because it's Carl give him the name Mighty Mike, you know.
But I'm telling you the story. Mr. Young called him Mighty Mike and called me the Mike nurse.
I think Big A is Carl calling Big A too, you know.
It's you, Big A, it's true. No, so I couldn't manage that dancehall thing. So that's how Susie came in.
Susie Q?
Yeah.
Carl call her Susie Q too?
Oh, really?
Yes. Carl was a character, you know. An amazing character.
But you were doing a similar thing, calling people slim pickings and all them something.
No, I called like that. You know, some of the names I gave, like even Kathy Owen, I mean, the KO thing and so on.
Some of the names couldn't go on air.
But some of the names I couldn't go on here. But I called everybody. I mean, Bob was super, you know. Everybody have a name, you know.
All right, so while Big A gets that ready, the influence of Irie FM though on the media landscape in Jamaica. What was it like before, and how did it change?
Bob,
the media. Well, you know what they wanted. This sounds like I'm going to blow my own trumpet here now, but it was the joint effort of all the people involved. You know, they wanted 2% of the market share. We got 32%. In fact, when the first survey came out, it said we had 22%. Everybody climbed, everybody was hopping, skipping, jumping, and all that. I wasn't happy. I wasn't part of that celebration because I knew we had more than 22%. Subsequent to that, a company from Trinidad heard about what was happening in Jamaica with this radio station, came and they did an independent survey.
And that's a word, independent
survey. Yeah. And the whole thing turned around. And it has been that way ever since. 28 years?
Yeah.
Because it was 2% of the market.
We're looking 2% of the market.
Yeah, we're talking, 2%.
In fact, there were 6 radio stations in Jamaica, and the board said if they got 2%.
If we got 2%, would be good, yeah.
All right, Big A, what do you want me to play? What track?
No, you actually can play anyone.
Okay, so just press?
Press.
Okay.
People Station. With this piece as one of the signature pieces of the station at the time.
No, the jingles were just amazing. We took people. I mean, Chad Young. There was you remember he had a jingle.
No, Irie FM rocking, you know.
No, that's Fat Gal. Fat Gal. Irie FM really rocking, you know. I think I
think we still have it.
Yeah. You had, I mean, people would come in, and then you had, I mean, Grub Cooper. Those people, I mean, the Chalice, as we said. I mean, Dennis brought in a lot of jingles too.
Fab Five,
yes, man, because and I mean, even some of the Kathy Owen jingles. KO, she's a knockout. Oh, yeah. That I think that was Rob Cooper, and Dennis what rough.
Mm-hmm. And the Jamaica folk singers gave us a few too in terms of the cultural ones.
Yes. So you had a whole heap, and then of course the Pinky and Juby. I mean and the Ezekiel, as you said. So I mean that was one of the things that really gave the station its distinctive sound. That jingle package.
Big A, we're talking about when and where we enter, and I mean enter from Radio Northeast. And when did you enter?
I just entered as a freshman, with very little experience in radio, no experience in radio at all. I had the experience as a disc jock and as an MC, but not any experience in radio. I was given the opportunity by Clyde Mackenzie. I must first say, though, I am honored to be in the presence of greatness. Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
Bob.
Thank you, Big A. Sorry.
I am honestly in the presence of greatness, and we take it for granted sometimes because we see these people every day and we just talk to them casually. True. But when I had the opportunity of listening from home, and I'm saying, wow, am I not honored to have these brethren as my friends, because they are serious contributors to the landscape and to the development of not only reggae but the Jamaican culture.
Mm-hmm. And Big A, Clyde said earlier that also, when you came in, well, the idea was to take in, you were listening, taking those who were not necessarily stars in media, but obviously we were stars in our own right. And even though them say, the music was a star, we were still stars, weren't we?
No, of course.
Of course. There you go, Clyde. But he talked about how you came in. You were apart from the fact that you're cousins.
No, well, actually, what happened? We discovered that we were cousins. I mean, probably just about the same time I was being given the opportunity. So it was like we knew we were cousins long before. Mm-hmm. It was just after just talking briefly about the experience.
But weren't you in doing entertainment? Were you in the entertainment business?
No, well, actually, I had 10 years in banking, and I had gone away to further my marketing skills, and I was told, by the way, of this station that is going to open in Jamaica, and I was uneasy where I was in Canada at the time. I knew this is what I wanted, and I ended up coming back without completing my course, and I made do to get in contact with Clyde Mackenzie, because I heard he was the gentleman who was the head honcho. He was the man who was going to be in charge. Right. And when I spoke to him, he said, listen, even if I'm going to give you this opportunity, it's not going to be right now, because this station, not ready yet. It is still in its initial, in the developing stages. This was like late 89 or thereabouts. So I was pretty much stuck now, not having a job, out of school, that kind of thing.
Back at Jamaica.
Come back. So I
last one.
Right. So
by the way, I ended up that happened to a few hours still, Because we expected it to be on air before it went on air.
Right.
Yes.
One last. Yeah, I remember that was one of the problems.
Right. So I ended up in the hotel.
Okay.
That was what, ambiance?
Club Caribbean.
It's the same ambiance, right?
No, man. Ambiance is the sister hotel.
Oh, it's the sister of Club Caribbean. Oh, yes, okay.
Because you were doing emceeing the Dennis Brown shows or playing at the Dennis Brown shows or something. And Dennis Brown and Friends. Because I saw you do something at one of those hotels.
No. At that time, No, Dennis Brown had come to the hotel, and as I said, I was the head of entertainment. So, Dennis Brown was one of my idols from long time. And I had the opportunity of introducing him there at the hotel on stage. It was one of the great moments.
I was there.
I was there.
Yeah, I was. Yeah. Remember, I saw Bob in Discovery, remember?
Oh, Bob?
Yeah, I saw him perform.
This is probably
at
before.
the Heart Academy in Discovery, babe. Runaway, babe. And then I see you.
Yeah, and I think, though, that was just before Irie, though. I don't think I had gotten here yet.
No, it was just before Irie. And so, but when you came in on the weekends.
Yeah, I started out with a Sunday morning program. That was my very first program. I did an audition tape and I sent it to Clyde. And I must tell you, it had nothing at all to do with reggae because it was so early that the format of the station was not yet defined. And he said to me that I should create an audition tape that would be reminiscent of a Sunday morning program. And I'll tell you, it wasn't gospel either. But he seemed to have been impressed. He called me back and said, well, you know them kind of tuna from youth. And, he said he liked my vibe and that he would consider me. Mm-hmm. So that is my
But you were the first one to do this segment that's going up at 10. You were the first.
Yes, I was. Yeah, man. When the format was established, that we were going to go all reggae. Of course, that became now a challenge as to what do we do on a Sunday, because reggae on a Sunday was a no-no.
Yeah, it was blasphemy. It was blasphemy
at the time. Reggae on a Sunday was just not.
And I said as much to Claire when he told me that. And I said to him, even on Sundays?
Right.
And he said yes, and the poor pastor daughter couldn't see it. Even on Sundays.
Right, that was.
You remember Andrea when she at Radio Northeast when she used to have a little hat. She was like a Christian.
Straw hat. It's straw hat.
Church.
It was straw hat. I never used to wear no church hat.
Straw
hat.
St. Hilda's.
No, it wasn't St. Hilda's.
He's right. He's right though. Bob is right. It was St. Hilda's hat.
It was?
Yeah.
Okay, well, there you go.
How was it Westwood?
Westwood.
No, she has good memory, She remember seeing me at the Heart Academy. That's where she said about the big bamboo.
Yes.
Oh, X-rated.
Yeah.
Yes.
Look, I got to tell you something. He's a very good performer. You know that.
Yeah, he could help himself.
Yeah. But when I came in on a Sunday morning, that was the least of the time that I spent here, because what happened is that I would be here every day of the week.
I know. Yeah.
Every day of the week, as the family gathered, the prospective staff members came in, and we would gather under the tree in the middle of the yard, and that was a primary school. It was a high school.
The yard was paved.
No. It was dirt.
Primary, secondary, tertiary,
and yeah, man, it was
postgrad
and postgrad. That meeting place. That is where the ignorant would learn, and that is where those with little knowledge would gain more, and then those with lots of knowledge would analyze.
Yeah.
That is just the meeting place. It's just somewhere you want it to be. From as early as maybe 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning, the assembly would be there, right? Bob Clark, Clyde McKenzie, Barry O'Hare, Stephen Stewart, the whole gamut.
Possibly third world members, Ibo Cooper.
Yeah, because they spent a long time down here.
Right. Yeah. In fact, you remember that Third World claimed that they adopted the station at one time. Right. And when you spoke to Lloyd Stanberry earlier on, he made reference to speaking to Catcore and asking him about the station. And Catcore embraced it with open arms. Play the next track.
What number is that?
It is queued in B, I think.
Okay, what that mean?
There's one song from Third World that has great memories for me. We talk about the jingle. As I say, they were coming from all different directions. But, I mean, there was a certain consistency in terms of the themes and how we were going about it. That just made the sound chain incredible. it was something that it just blew people away. I mean, they just hear it and it just carried them away.
All right. Well, listen now. We've run just a bit over time, just 5 minutes over time. Big A's in the studio. It is surreal in a way just to be listening back to this conversation that we had so many years ago, Big A. This is like about 7, 8, probably 9 years ago, you know.
What?
Yeah, man, it's a good while because I started checking it just now and listening to some of the things they said. Because we literally dated this interview in terms of talking about the Miss Lou event and so on. It's about 7, 8 years ago. Probably 9, if you ask me.
Okay.
Yeah. So, here we are, 35 years.
The choral anniversary.
Yeah. Oh, it is choral.
The
okay.
The choral anniversary.
It is, yeah.
If you plan to tokenize or give us any gift representing our 35 years, then I guess
choral, is it?
It should be choral and genuine choral.
Yeah.
I must add.
Don't go too deep, and remember to protect the coral reefs.
For sure.
Yeah, we're environmentalists out here. I wanted to, first of all, just to talk quickly, because I know, and you've been talking about it elsewhere, that the 35 celebrations, massive, inclusive of identifying and celebrating those who contributed to the music.
Yes.
Over the years, reggae music.
No, for sure. The Irie FM experience is, you could call us the middle child, Cabo. When we came in, we had to rely heavily on the music that was established before us. The ska, the rock steady, the Alton Ellises, the Bob Andys, the Bob Marleys, and so on. We had to rely heavily on that. But at the same time, we are also we became the creators of a new space and era of Jamaican music. I don't know what is happening here.
I'm hearing you, but
right.
If you check mine, you see that. But then,
sabotage, I guess.
It happens on a Sunday. Yeah.
No, but we are the middle child. We were between relying on standing on the shoulders of the predecessors, those who established the music before we got there, and then we became the shoulders on which a lot of the upcoming and the new artists would stand. So we saw the rise of Luciano, we saw the rise of Sizzler, we saw the rise of Beenie Man, Bounty Killer, Protege. We saw the rise of a new generation of artists. So we stood in the middle. We stood in a very pivotal space, you might say, for the music.
Yeah, and so we were creating and exposing, leading that whole process of creating. Because if you look back at it, for those of us who came in 1990. And this is something I've been kind of reflecting on, the changes that we saw, not just in terms of the beats, but in terms of those who we were giving a voice or giving voices to. That made a whole lot of difference. I remember what the young artists who were coming in at the time were saying, like the Buju Bantons and Beenie Man and Bounty Killer and them. They were very excited for that space.
The Garnet Silks and the Lucianos. No, of course. There were, the Tone the Rebels and so on. I heard him mention a couple of just last week about how he felt when he heard his song on the radio for the first time. And this is the feeling I know of a lot of persons. I remember Richie Stevens calling me one morning to say he might call me for find out if I'm dead.
How so?
Because it's the only time that so much music from one artist.
It was a tribute. It resembled a tribute.
Right.
So just checking in to see if he's okay.
That was actually how I met him.
Yes.
Yeah. that was how it was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you can imagine a space where, you could spend 4 hours just playing one genre, different beats, as Bob was saying, but one genre. So what that did was to give so many other people and so many other creatives a chance to get yours into the space.
Yes.
That was not available before.
Before, none at all. It was a token representation for the most part when Jamaican music was played on radio.
Yeah. So the tribute, so IRFM as part of the 35th, of course, celebrating 35 years of the music.
35 years of the music, and as a representation of that, we have decided that we are going to establish for the first time on this our 35th year the Irie FM walk, or rather wall of fame, and this wall will seek to represent and expose 35 of the greatest, or of the great, because I don't know if there's a greatest, but of 35 of the great icons of Jamaican music.
From them time till this time, beyond 35 years.
Right, because as I said, we are the middle child. We stood on the shoulders of some, and there were others who stood on our shoulders. So it is the broadest gamut of Jamaican music. And of course, the challenge with that, Kabu, is which 35? Who will make this 35? And before we get bogged down, though, we must first convince ourselves that it is not going to be limited to 35, because as Irie FM grows, we will be adding more and more icons to the space. So if you don't make it in the first 35, chances are that somewhere down the road you will be represented. Right? So the 35,
no, please do not send me any names. Big sort out the thing, and look here, don't send me no name, because I know what's going to happen now. We come off a year, so we're going to hear who fit up on a 35 list of big. Right. So how can people participate in this?
All right, sure. Firstly, I must tell you the process. We have scoured the industry for some of the most brilliant minds on Jamaican music. Those who have researched it, those who have taught it, those who have lived it, those who have studied it. And we have, established a panel of contributors. And these contributors will be asked to submit their 35. Right, independently of each other. Right. And then what we will do is to tabulate the results of that, and we would have come up with we are going to take the 30 most recurring names from this list, and we will have our list of 30. Now it's 35, right? So what we plan to do with the remaining 5 is give the listener.
All right. So this is where you come in now. So allow me.
Right. This is where you come in. You, the listener, come in. You have the opportunity of choosing the final 5 that will make this 35 on the wall.
All right.
And we will establish. We will have the official launch and tell you how you can contribute on the 1st of August, when we actually launch the campaign in the streets. All right,
big things.
Right. So the ceremony is further down in the year, but the campaign to get your attention now, for you to vote for who you believe. Well, we are going to show our hand. We are going to tell you who we have voted for, who the 30 is.
Right.
So you don't have to be worrying about whether this name is there or not.
Exactly.
Right. So if you look at the list and you see somebody who you believe is not there, feel free to vote for that person.
All right. So and I'm sure you just me and Biggie gonna be talking about this almost every Sunday until we literally have the wall of fame. So keep listening. There's a way that you can get involved in this, and you just heard a while ago from Biggie.
Yeah, man, and I'll tell you, and I'll just, can we just brag a little bit about...
Yes, man, go ahead and brag at 10:50.
About this, is that this is the very first time, or if it is not the first time, not very often do you have something of this magnitude, right? That you are seeking the approval and the participation of the public.
Of you, the listener. Yeah.
Right. You don't get that opportunity all the time. And this is one of the times we want to take it to you to say, we value your opinion on this. Because we could simply have asked the panel to choose the 35. That would have been easy. But it is important that we get your participation in this. So we're looking forward to the thousands and thousands of requests and entries that will make up this final five.
All right. Enough things, you'll hear as you go along, but at 35 years, and we feel good about it. And this element of it really is a big, big deal. So
it is.
Stay on cock. Listen, we will be telling you more about that as time goes on. Big A, I'm going to finish something now.
Have a good one.
You want me to care back anything for you? Roti, dal and ball, anything like that?
Bring back the whole package.
There you
I need
go.
to give him a shed pan.
And I can't eat it until I see you.
I have a nice little shed pan in my van, so I'll
Okay. There you go. Be careful, I'll take it, put it on my fridge. All right, so this is how we're saying goodbye for today. Handing over now to the Big A. Celebrate with us, 35 years. Talk soon.